Okay, match 3. Alright, so I have to do some post-league, post-match commentary, but let's take a look back at match 3. Yeah, so, I mean, can't complain. I think this hand is decent. The Kaldra is pretty much a dead card if they deal with the Stoneforge Mystic, most likely in this hand. But since this hand is pretty decent, even even if this was a 6-card hand without the Kaldra, I think it's an okay keep. This may be a case where we get to see some of the downsides for Kaldra. I mean, just because we may see some downsides doesn't mean the Kaldra is a bad card, But that is one thing to like about Maul of the Skyclaves, which is one alternative we could consider. Is that even if that's just naturally in our hand, it's pretty decent equipment. So I think we go grab Sword of Fire and Ice because we're fully expecting them to deal with this, and if they don't, we still got the Kaldra as a payoff. But yep. So of course they play this, and of course they play Fury, actually, which is not actually what we were expecting as a removal spell, but that actually seems like it's a decent possibility. Oh, and it is worth noting they've got Obosh. So at first we were kind of thinking maybe it's Obosh prowess, but experimenting with Obosh and Ponza, I think Obosh is definitely something that I think is more justifiable on Ponza than they think. That being said, with that, now that you have to pay 3 to put it in a hand, admittedly, Bloodbraid Elf can sometimes lead to kind of nuts starts, so there's definitely that consideration that you give up Bloodbraid Elf. But honestly, you don't give up much more other than Bloodbraid Elf. So you give up Chandra, Torch of Defiance. Oh. So, you give it Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and honestly, I don't think those decks usually play that many copies of Chandra. Excuse me, I gotta turn my alarm off here. Alright. Yeah, anyway, so let's continue on. We held up Aven Mindscensor, hoping to be sneaky. And here we can sneakily try to cut them off. A fetch land. Now, we're not expecting them, they've got a lot of basic lands, so we're not just expecting anything. But hey, look, see, even sometimes in a deck chock full of basics, sometimes the basic is not in the top 4, but unfortunately Seasoned Pyromancer off the top still makes things a little bit difficult. Sometimes it feels like the opponent always has Seasoned Pyromancer. I mean, we know from experience with Obosh prowess that you don't always have Seasoned Pyromancer in these Seasoned Pyromancer decks. Anyway, so we're not getting too frisky, but we just Charming Prince, gain 3 life, and block a token. The 3 life is going to be important because this is draining us every single turn. Good to have a little bit of a buffer. Yeah, so we just play the Sword of Fire and Ice. Honestly, this is just better than Maul of the Skyclaves anyway, if that was. Yeah, see, that's the recurring theme with Maul of the Skyclaves, in my opinion, is I think a lot of times you think you're clever by fetching it, but most of the time I think Sword of Fire and Ice is just going to be better to fetch anyway. Of course here, I think as compared to Sword of Fire and Ice is much better than Maul of the Skyclaves, but as compared to Kaldra, I think it's a much closer case. Yeah, Fury, Hardcast Fury. I'm actually kind of liking the concept for this Obosh build. They seem to be using Fury as sort of like a value engine as opposed to Bloodbraid Elf, and that unlocks Obosh for them. There's definitely something to like about that. I mean, the makings of a possible comeback are here, but we basically need to draw. Well, the problem is what we really need to draw is like a Solitude and like a. What we really needed was an extra mana, Solitude, and Flickerwhisp or something to get an extra trigger out of it. That's how we usually can come back in situations like this, but obviously that's kind of impossible with this particular hand. Alternatively, we could have had like another white card in hand and then drawn into something. Anyway, like I said, when you're drawing an extra card and equipping Sword of Fire and Ice, you know, there is a possibility, but it doesn't look like this game, so that's that. Okay, second game in match 3. Let's see how this one went. Yep. So you know, this hand, you know, like it does stuff, but in retrospect, you know, so I ended up keeping it. In retrospect, though, I probably should have mulled. But I mean, I don't know. Like, on the other hand, this is one of the reasons why we moved over to taxes, at least for now, from Hammer Time, is we can actually win with kind of clunky, little bit clunky hands like this. No Aether Vial, whatever. Scry 2. I don't think we need the Flagstones, so Flickerwhisp, that's probably good, so we leave that on top. Yeah, so we were getting excited actually for one turn. We saw Pillage on top and we saw the Utopia Sprawl, but they happen to have Pillage. We'll see how this plays out though, because it's possible that maybe they jumped the gun, and now we're definitely kind of regretting putting the Flagstones to the bottom, but we couldn't have known for sure they had Pillage. If we would have known they had Pillage, we would have kept that on top. So here the issue is the ideal play would be to Flickerwhisp the Forest now, but that requires putting us down a land by targeting our own Fielder Rune. So we'll just play the Archon. Yeah, the problem is they just apparently draw Lightning Bolt, otherwise you'd think they just played it in a turn. They put Obosh to hand. So, and you know, this is where I start to think, or not start to think, but this is like the second match in a row where I'm strongly thinking, you know, maybe Eidolon of Rhetoric is a better hate card for this this one spell per turn type tax-ish type effect, just because we could use some extra help against Lightning Bolt decks. All the rest of our creatures are pretty vulnerable. Maybe just having one creature with 4 toughness is kind of worth it. Aside from the fact that, you know, that it stops one spell per turn. Of course, Fury would still deal with a 4 toughness creature, but we'd at least have a 1/4 sitting around that you know, in theory could block Fury. Yeah, so we'd at least be up 1/4, and I think that'd be kind of important because they are getting to the part where they can possibly double spell. So okay, here's the deal. We can't actually hit this with Skyclave because it's 5 mana. This only goes up to 4. This is one of the few cases where Skyclave doesn't hit something. And I think I make a mistake here from what I remember. I think I finally go after the Utopia Sprawl, but they're still going to end up with 4 mana in play. What I should have done is I should have blinked my my planes so I can path this. You know, so in retrospect, I'm like, yeah, because I think I end up having to Ghost Quarter my land. Taking 6 is just a little too brutal. And of course, there's another Lightning Bolt. Yeah, see, they wouldn't be able to double spell here if I had that Eidolon of Rhetoric, if I had an Eidolon of Rhetoric still in play, because it had 4 toughness from that first Lightning Bolt way back when. Or maybe it was the second Lightning Bolt, I can't remember. Yeah, it was the second one. The first one hit my Charming Prince. So, you know, that could have been something. Of course, they could have just waited. They could have just waited to kill my Flickerwhisp on my turn. I still would have 1/4 in play, but yeah, I suppose I could have just waited till my turn, so maybe it's not necessarily doing that much yet. Still, having an extra 1/4 in play would have been something, and yeah, and here I think this was you know, even at the time I remember thinking, and I remember actually I had some video that I thought I was recording, but I was on mute for some reason. Yeah, just like, yeah, probably I should have Flickerwhisped my planes, because I was thinking, yeah, I probably need the mana more than they do. So here, I think I have to Skyclave the Klothys. The thing that I'm worried about in the back of my head is maybe if they've got another one. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Klothys in a long game is eventually going to get us. So I think they play Obosh here. Yep. So we have to path this. This is a pretty, yeah. And now I'm definitely thinking like, yeah, having, you know, being 1 land away from Solitude would definitely be a lot better. Anyway, so honestly that might be the bigger problem here, is the fact that we didn't flicker our planes, so it came into play untapped, as opposed to you know, hitting their lands, because like suspected, they usually tend to lose more by flooding out rather than getting mana screwed, because the deck has a lot of mana sources. So especially like once the game progressed to that point, yeah, probably it's just better to conserve our own mana than opponents. So what are they up to? We're thinking Seasoned Pyromancer, but it just turns out to be another Klothys, if I remember correctly. Yep. Still not ideal, but a little slightly better than Seasoned Pyromancer in my opinion, ever so slightly. Yeah, now we're really kicking ourselves for not conserving our mana. So, yep, it happens. And now I think, okay, we thought that was Seasoned Pyromancer. You know, that, I remember for 1 millisecond we thought maybe that's like a hidden benefit somewhere, because maybe we can resolve the Batterskull, but we don't have very many turns to either draw 2 more lands to go for Batterskull or a Solitude, especially when they got the, you know, this card. Also, if we had untapped our planes with the Flickerwhisp, because if you flicker your planes, then end of turn it comes back, and when it comes back untapped, so that's a classic, you know, advantage you can have. Yeah, well, the other advantage we would have had is we would have had a Fielder Rune that could have hit the Wolf Run. I mean, our position still wouldn't have been enviable, but we would have been at 4 lands instead of 3. We would have had a Fielder Rune to take them off of Wolf's Run. And if we had not misplayed earlier with the, and if we had Eidolon of Rhetoric instead of Archon, we would have another 1/4 in play. Ideally, hitting this and having a good blocker for our own 3/3 token. So yeah, they play Arbor Elf. Now this is a minor misplay, except since they give trample. I mean, yeah, this is a minor misplay because the reality is, yeah, I mean, the reality is I probably wouldn't have blocked anyway. Nah, I probably had to block just to tie up their mana so I get to kill their Arbor Elf, but going down to 4... See, I think finally we draw a land here if I remember correctly. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so realistically, at 4 mana, it's possible that this wouldn't have made a difference, except that I think the best plan, if we had played correctly earlier, would have been to take them off of Keswick Wolf Run, and I think hopefully our life total would have been just high enough that yeah, we can path this. Since they're so mana flooded, there's no reason not to just path as opposed to Solitude. Either way, we lose the path in our hand. Yeah, so here's the 5th mana. Now, of course, you know, the exact cards we drew would have been different if we played correctly, because we would have had to shuffle from the Fielder Rune on the Keswick Wolf Run, and obviously they would have shuffled too, so their draws would have been different from that point onward. So, you know, it's impossible to it's probably possible to speculate exactly what would have happened, but make no mistake, that misplay on not untapping our planes, you know, so going down a land in order to deal with their Fury, that definitely cost us big time. You know, I mean, the thing about this Taxes deck is you'd be surprised how often, you know, especially with equipment like Batterskull, we can get back in a game that looks like we're out of it. Not this time, though. Alright, anyway, I guess we'll see if we can end on a positive note in the next couple games. So let's see. Yep.